All Hallows Eve has emptied out hell to let spirits and demons roam for a spell. Did they see what I saw when I went down below? An 8-legged horror's grim fandango. The humans don't know what creeps the stairwell as they swirl their goblets of white Zinfandel. Furry legs tapping, mouths screeching, teeth snapping. I wish it weren't true that I was catnapping. But lo, what is this? The humans aren't scared. They ventured far closer than I would have dared. They moved with vigour through the dark of the chateau, dripping and sipping fresh glasses of Merlot. They want to stroke the dread abomination, these malodorous buboes with gross affectation. I retreat to my sanctum and hope daylight will shed this phantasmagoria dancing round in my head. The morning mists rise. Will this nightmare continue? I know that it will, deep within every sinew. Never did I think in the whole universula that I could know terror, the mighty Count Ursula!
Good morning. The fence posts are in and they're dried and they're now nice and rigid. So we thought we'd get this first board on to go between the 3 fence posts with the centre one supporting it. And disaster has struck. I don't know what happened because we measured carefully the length of the board, which was to go exactly halfway between the posts. These posts from there, same distance on the third one, and we're about 12 centimetres out. And I thought we'd measured accurately, and I don't know what we've done wrong. And that's it now.
I was standing in catatonic dismay as Rory said we'd now need to cut up 3 sheets of OSB to span the posts. But then I said, why don't we put in another post at the join?
Right, panic over. We put one board here and we decided that if we just build a frame in between the posts and then a support going at the centre there, it's fine not to have them. It's fine to have them overlapping and not end on a central post. We can support it from the back. So that panic is over, that worry is over. We can proceed as we were. I'm just mildly miffed with myself, but it doesn't matter, it's fine. So the next thing is it's Sunday. Obviously the shops aren't open. And Jane is desperate to get the horses in here today if possible because she's worried about how boggy it's getting out there because we've had some really heavy rain the last couple of days. So if we can get them in here today, that means that's going to be done. I'm waffling a bit because I'm thinking about what I've got to get done. We've got to get the frame done so that they're secure, so the horses are in here, electric fence out that way so they can get to the field, and then we're nearly there.
First, we needed to drag the rubber mats across from the other bay as they'd soon be walled in. We will have to buy more mats for the second bay once we're ready to use it. Rory had installed the new electric fence energiser in the barn, and we'd been able to connect it to the mains in the orangery.
I was trying to borrow the power lead to cut the wooden posts down to size. Frustratingly, my mitre saw had mysteriously stopped working, so I had to do most of the cuts with the circular saw, which was less accurate.
As the boards were screwed in place, I was able to get a real feel for how the stable would look when it's finished. But first, there were a couple of hours ahead, removing stones and raking the floor to make an even, smooth surface, especially for the rubber mats, but also to make sure that there weren't any stray bits of debris left from the years of use as a barn.
So in the barn we found some of this wood. There's quite a bit of it, some of it in a worse state than others. But it just so happens to be exactly the right size wood that we want. It matches up with the fence posts that we've put in. So this will help get us through a tricky spot.
As I'd mentioned earlier, it was Sunday, the shops were shut, we were short of wood and we had a deadline. This black painted wood came in extremely handy to help finish the framework to brace the boards. To give more strength to the stable wall, I added in small gallows bracket type braces on either side of the fence posts. The frame is nearly complete. Once done, this side will also be boarded.
Some of us appear to be working harder than others.
After having the horses in an area with only temporary fencing, an increasingly muddy environment and a leaky old stable, it was fantastic to be able to give them this large, dry, airy space to inhabit. They have free access to the new paddocks as well as the hard-standing terrace. It certainly put a spring in Harry's step. And Penny, our old ex-racehorse, was visibly content, as if this was exactly what she'd been waiting for. In fact, she seems to be calling him back in here. We'll be adding some posts and rails at the entrance, and I'll be clearing away some more of the weeds, but for now it's working really well. So this is now almost a stable. And I think Harry's going to come over and roll, because there's nothing Harry likes better than rolling on fresh shavings. Oh, we first.
Welcome to Jane's Find of the Day with Jane.
Hello and welcome to this week's Find of the Day at Chateau de Pican. Today I'm going to be talking about this. As far as I know, it is a jar for containing ginger. It's Chinese, I think. And it's very pretty, interesting colours. Obviously certain Chinese items are very well known for being blue and white, or sometimes blue and I would call it yellow, so blue and white but yellow version. But here we've got many different kinds of colour. We've got pinks, we've got greens, we've got blues, and it's very delightful. So I went looking to see if I could find a pot that was similar. As I've previously said, I know nothing at all about Chinese porcelain, antiquities, etc. I'm purely looking things up as I go along. And it's the whole area is fraught with peril. But I did find a couple of pots which are similar to this. If you've watched one of the earlier episodes, I was talking in one about a pot, and people pointed out that it was a cash bow for hiding. Put a plant in it, and that's what it's for. You basically, it's to hide the plant pot, and you put a plant in there. And when I was looking into that, I came across the discussion of rain marks, which are on the bottom often of Chinese pottery, and they will tell you the reign, so the emperor who was reigning at the time that the pot was made. That's always very, very exciting. The one that I found sort of looked superficially like it was going to be that, but the markings actually said something to indicate that it was a fairly modern item. This one, okay, we've got a lid. It's quite pretty turquoise colour on the inside. On the bottom, there are no similar marks. So the other pot, as I said, sort of had an imitation rain mark, which was in the glaze or stamped on. It's often either red or blue. That one was red. Here, we've got no mark. So I was kind of thinking, oh, okay, well, I can't really see this being attributed to any particular emperor if there's no rain mark. But one of the items I found that was really similar to this was being sold in China, and they referred to it as a Qing, Qing, dynasty pot. And, you know, if you hear the word dynasty, you're automatically thinking Ming dynasty. That sounds like it's valuable. As I understand it, the Qing dynasty began in 1634. And again, you're thinking, oh my goodness, is this really old? But the dynasty ended in 1912, so not that old necessarily. But anyway, that particular pot is being sold in China. So you kind of think, okay, well, they must know what they're talking about. On the bottom, though, here is what looks to be a wax seal. It's partially damaged, but nonetheless, there's the remains of a wax seal on the bottom of the jar. I thought, well, that looks like it could be significant. What does that mean? And what I found out, as best I can, which is quite funny, is that the seal was a government seal put on by the Chinese government to indicate that items were suitable for export from China because they had no historical value. So they were not attributed to any particular dynasty. They were therefore not very important, so they were okay to send abroad. So you're thinking, okay, then this is not tremendously valuable, but it is still very interesting because it's been made in the style of older items, and during the Qing dynasty, as I understand it, it was revolutionary for them to use these different pigments. So it's kind of been done in the style of an older piece, but it's almost certainly not an older piece. However, the very fact that it has this wax seal on, which if you like tells you it's not super old, also dates it potentially to between the 1920s and the 1950s. So it is old-ish, probably.
Whilst I love my battery chainsaw, I know it has its limitations, and so it was brand new tool day. This reasonably priced petrol chainsaw made extremely light work of the remaining trunk of the fallen tree. You could almost say it was like a hot, grindy knife through really woody butter. All of this free firewood comes at a cost. I have to chop it up. It took precisely this long. Jane and I are legally married. It made sense to do this before we applied for our French visas, so we had a small ceremony without many frills or guests at the beginning of the year. Why am I telling you this over footage of me chainsawing a tree into slices? Well, in September next year we're planning to have a proper party wedding here at the chateau, and I'd suddenly had an idea. I've decided to cut the dead tree into slices to possibly act as placemats for the wedding. It's not a finalised plan, and they may not get used at all, but it's better to have them and not need them than to rue not making them in the first place. So far I've cut 32 slices, another 20 or 30 and we should have enough for placemats. I think they look quite artistic just loosely piled up. La maison d'un chat, c'est son chateau. So why has mine become such a freak show? With confounded homunculi let loose in my salon. And now what should I find but a nest for a dragon? A long-taloned worm with leathery wings, chewer of maidens, chomper of kings. Or maybe a human cutting pampas with ease. I really should stop eating late-night cheese. Earlier in the year I chopped back this pampas grass using a hedge trimmer. It took about an hour, and afterwards I was quite pleased with my work. This took about 5 minutes.
Well, it's been a few weeks since I've been able to work on the step for the back stairs, and that's because the belt sanders that I found and got working from the barn, that were in the barn, one of them I couldn't find belts for it online to buy, and the other one I bought a load of belts for it, and then there turned out to be something wrong with it, and the belts wouldn't stay on, and a bit's broken off. And anyway, the result is I had to go and buy a brand new belt sander. So that arrived. That took a little while to arrive, getting through buying new belts, waiting for that, not working, deciding to buy a sander, waiting for that to arrive, got the sander. And I thought I'd ordered one that had the same belt size as the belts that I'd ordered online. And of course it wasn't. So I've had to order new belts, which haven't arrived yet, but this sander has come with one belt. So I can do a certain amount of sanding with the one belt that I've got before that gets worn out and gummed up. We'll see how far we get. But it means that we can now get to work trying to get to the end of repairing those stairs. Finally. It'd be nice to get them done so we can use them properly again. Anyway, I've not tried this yet, so let's see where we go. So straight away, the collection bag is on this side, so all the air coming is blowing straight in my face. So maybe if I hold it this way, it'll come this side. Well, it's very loud, and to be perfectly honest, as far as catching the dust goes, this thing blows. My eyes are full. Anyway, not sure how to get that off at the minute, but the results are pretty good. We're starting to get down, so each side where I chop from one side and chop from the other, they're starting to even out, and the grain in the wood is starting to look really nice. Just using that one belt, it was 80 grit, and so I've managed to get it almost all smooth. There's still a little bit of work to do there, but I might use the orbital sander that I've got, that I already have, which has some smoother discs, less less coarse grit. But I've sort of evened it all out, so they're nice smooth. It's a nice smooth surface now, and it looks fantastic. So some sort of wax or polish or some treatment on it that should bring out the grain and make it look really attractive. That's what I'm going to look for. I haven't decided what yet, but we'll see how it goes. Early stages. I've got the other step to match up. The tricky bit will be making sure that both parts of the rounded bit of the step match up equally. So I'll probably have to join them together and then sand them all into position. So it might be tricky. We're not out of the woods yet, but it is looking good. And I'm very dusty.
The moment that perhaps none of you have been waiting for.
So in terms of what it might be worth, well, somebody in China is selling this for, or something very similar to this, for about $220 or euros. So they think it's reasonably valuable. They referred to it, I think, as Qing Dynasty, and they said it was dated from about 1900. So maybe it is dated from about 1900, or maybe it's later and it was designed to look like it was from the 1900s. But as I understand it, the youngest it could be is from the 1950s. So I believe it's, from what I can tell, it's a reasonably old piece. It's very feminine, it's very charming, and I'm very happy to have it.
If you've enjoyed our video, please consider hitting that subscribe button and giving us a like. It really does help. See you next time.